Nathaniel froze in alarm and pulled back on the reins. Beneath the thick branches of a tree, a tall Apache woman hung suspended in the air. One of her arms was tied high above her head. The rope wrapped so tightly around her wrist that it had torn the skin. Her shoulder and chest were stretched in an unnatural position. The weight of her body dragged her backward, her toes barely touching the ground. Her muscles were strong and defined, yet trembling faintly from exhaustion. Bruises spread along her thighs, clear signs of cruel kicks and brutal blows. She was still alive. When his shadow fell across her face, her eyes opened. There was no plea for help, no begging, only exhaustion and the quiet readiness for the worst. She thought he had come to finish the sentence. Nathaniel dismounted and stepped closer. He studied the rope cutting deep into her wrist. A long silence stretched between them, as if the desert itself were waiting to see what he would do. He drew his knife. The blade sliced through the rope. Her body collapsed, and he caught her before her head could strike the ground. "You are safe now," Nathaniel said, his voice low and steady. And beneath the scorching sun, for the first time that day, something was no longer hanging there as bait for death. Nathaniel laid her down on the only bed in the cabin. The oil lamp cast a warm glow against the wooden walls, shadows flickering like restless memories. She came to while he was removing the torn cloth wrapped around her wrist. Her first instinct was not weakness, but resistance. Her muscles tightened, even through the exhaustion. "Easy," Nathaniel said softly. "I am not going to hurt you." She stared at him, her eyes sharp and wary, like a warrior caught in an ambush. He cleaned the wound on her wrist first. The blood had dried, but the skin was torn deep. She clenched her teeth and made no sound. When he moved down to examine the bruises on her thigh, where heavy kicks had left dark purple marks, his hand had barely touched the fabric before she jerked upright, her breathing fast and uneven. "Please, do not," she said, her voice tightening. "It hurts there." It was not only physical pain. There was fear in her voice, the fear of being touched without permission. Nathaniel immediately pulled his hand back. "All right," he said. "I will not touch you if you do not want me to." He set the cloth and antiseptic on the table and stepped back, leaving a clear distance between them. Silence filled the cabin. After several heavy breaths, she slowly lowered her shoulders again, though her eyes never left him. "What will you trade me for?" she asked. Nathaniel frowned. "Trade? Men do not do things for free," she replied. "You saved me. What do you want?" He removed the revolver from his belt and placed it on the table, far from his reach. "I do not trade people," he said. "I just do not walk away." That answer made her pause. He poured water into a tin cup and offered it to her without touching her hand. "What is your name?" he asked. She hesitated for a second. "Ayanna Wolfcrest." Nathaniel Boone. Wind pushed hard through the half-open window. He had not locked the door. She noticed that. If he had wanted to keep her, he would have done things differently. Ayanna looked around the simple cabin. There were no signs of family, only the quiet of a man who had lost too much. "Why are you not afraid?" she asked. Nathaniel stared into the oil lamp flame. "I have survived worse than fear," he replied. Outside, the desert was as unforgiving as ever. But inside that small cabin, for the first time since she had been left hanging beneath that tree, Ayanna no longer felt like just a body for someone else to hang up and decide the fate of. It truly means a lot to have you here. If you enjoy the way I tell stories, please subscribe to the channel. The next morning, Ayanna was able to sit up without gripping the edge of the bed for support. She took a closer look around the cabin. An old stone fireplace, a worn wooden table, an empty chair placed across from it, as if someone had once sat there for a very long time. Nathaniel was standing out on the porch, fixing a loose door hinge with an old screwdriver. "Do you live alone?" she asked as she stepped outside. "Yes. Where is your family?" He did not answer right away. He simply tightened the screw one more turn. "They died in a fire." Ayanna did not press further. After a moment, she said, "The man who hanged me was not some stranger." Nathaniel turned to look at her. "Colton Hayes," she said. "The sheriff's son." He did not look surprised. "In this land, the law often had relatives. He wants my land," she continued. "The ranch my parents left me. There is a large, unmined silver deposit beneath the northern hillside." Nathaniel lifted an eyebrow slightly. "My parents discovered it before they died," Ayanna said. "They kept it secret because they did not want the town to swarm in like vultures. And Colton knows," Nathaniel concluded. She nodded. "He tried to force me to sign away my inheritance. He said if I did not sign, the land might accidentally burn the way my parents' house did. The last words fell like a stone. Nathaniel set his tools down on the table. Did he burn their house? He asked. There is no proof, she replied. Only fire. And the way he looked at me while the ashes were still warm. The morning wind moved across the open stretch of land, where the branch that had once held her still cast a shadow over the sand. I did not sign, Ayanna continued. He said if I did not belong to him, then the land would not either. Nathaniel looked at the bandage still wrapped around her wrist. Do you still have the deed? Ayanna was silent for a few seconds, then stepped back into the cabin. She bent down and pulled a small leather pouch from inside her shirt. Inside was an old document, the edges slightly burned, but the seal still clear. The original deed, she said. Nathaniel took it and examined it carefully. The ink seal was valid. The signature was authentic. If you still have this, he said slowly, then he has not won. Ayanna looked at him. You are planning to stand against the sheriff's son? Nathaniel handed the document back to her. I am not standing against his family, he said. I am standing against a woman being hanged for refusing to sign. Outside, the sun began to climb higher in the sky, and for the first time since she had been left hanging beneath that tree, Ayanna was not only thinking about survival, she was thinking about keeping what was hers. That afternoon, Nathaniel and Ayanna rode on horseback toward the northern hillside, where her family's old ranch sat quietly in the middle of the dry grasslands. The fence was broken and sagging. Part of the roof had collapsed, but the well was still there. Ayanna dismounted first. She walked slowly, but steadily. Every step was a declaration that she had not been erased from this land. There used to be wheat here, she said. My mother planted it when the drought came. She said if you are patient, the land will repay you. Nathaniel studied the cracked earth beneath his boots. Land never betrays you, he said. People do. Ayanna led him up toward a rocky edge, where a faint metallic streak shimmered beneath the red soil. Here, she said. Nathaniel knelt and used his knife to pry gently at the dirt. Gray stones with a silver sheen caught the sunlight. No one has mined it yet? He asked. My father said the silver deposit could feed 3 generations, she replied. But it could also get us killed if the town found out. Nathaniel looked at her. Colton wants it. Not just wants it, she said. He believes it already belongs to him. The wind grew stronger, carrying sand through the air. What are you going to do? Nathaniel asked. Ayanna looked around, and her eyes were no longer those of someone who had been left hanging. They were the eyes of a landowner. I keep it, she said. I do not sell. I do not sign. I do not bow. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Then we prepare. In the days that followed, they worked from morning until night. Ayanna repaired the collapsed roof with the same hands that had once been tied above her head. She hauled timber and lifted beams without waiting for Nathaniel to help. When her wrist throbbed, she simply clenched her teeth. Nathaniel cleared out the well and reinforced its mouth with fresh stone. He taught her how to fire a rifle from the porch, not for revenge, but for defense. You do not have to run anymore, he said. I never ran, she answered. One evening, as they stood overlooking the land beneath the fading sunset, Nathaniel spoke quietly. He will come back. Ayanna did not blink. I know, and his father will pretend not to see it. She tightened her grip on the deed in her hand. Then we need more than guns, she said. We need the truth. Nathaniel looked at her with new respect. The desert could scorch and burn, but this land, if held by someone who was not afraid, would not be taken easily. And this time, when Colton Hayes returned, he would not find a victim hanging beneath a tree branch. He would find a woman standing on her own land. That afternoon, dust rose from the southern road. Nathaniel was fastening the stable door when he saw 3 riders approaching. He did not need to guess who was leading them. Colton Hayes rode a glossy black horse, his long coat shifting in the wind. 2 gunmen followed behind him, their revolvers hanging low, their eyes cold. Ayanna stepped off the porch before Nathaniel could call out to her. She stood in the middle of the yard, shoulders straight, her hand resting near the grip of her gun but not drawing it. Colton stopped his horse a few steps away. Well, this is a surprise, he said, his smile crooked. I thought I left you for dead. Ayanna did not respond. Colton glanced at Nathaniel. Do you even know who she is? Someone who owes this town a silver mine. Nathaniel wiped his hands on his trousers, his voice calm. Ours who? My family, Colton replied. My father is the law here. The law does not own land, Ayanna said clearly. A deed does. Colton laughed loudly. Paper can disappear, just like your parents' house disappeared. The air grew heavy. Nathaniel stepped forward. She is not signing anything. She will, Colton said, his eyes shifting back to Ayanna. Or this time I will not hang you from a tree. I will burn this entire ranch to the ground. One of the gunmen let out a short, mocking laugh. Ayanna pulled the deed from inside her jacket and held it up in the sunlight. The original, she said, stamped by the county, signed and valid. Colton looked at the document. For a brief moment, his smile faded, then returned. You think that paper will save you? He said. When my father is the one who enforces the law? Nathaniel met his gaze. If you lay a hand on this land, you will not be standing here to laugh. A second of silence followed. The wind picked up, swirling dust around the horse's legs. Colton leaned slightly forward in his saddle. I will be back, he said. And next time, I am not coming to talk. He pulled the reins and turned his horse away. The two gunmen followed, leaving the ground trembling faintly beneath iron hooves. Ayanna lowered the deed. Do you believe he will keep his word? She asked. Nathaniel looked toward the horizon, now turning red with the sinking sun. Men who are used to power never accept losing it, he said. Ayanna slipped the document back inside her jacket. Then next time, she said. We will not just stand here talking. The desert grew still before a storm that had not yet arrived, and they both understood that the conversation they had just had was only the opening note to what would come with the sound of gunfire. Colton did not keep them waiting long. 2 days later, before the sun had reached its peak, dust was already rolling up from the dirt road. This time, it was not 3 horses. It was 5. Nathaniel was outside near the stable when he heard the pounding hooves. He did not shout. He simply walked back into the cabin and took the rifle down from the wall. Ayanna was already standing at the west window. They are here, she said. Colton rode at the front, and there was no trace of humor left in his eyes. One last time, he shouted. Sign the paper, or I will burn this place to the ground. Nathaniel stepped onto the porch. You are standing on her land, he said. Colton gave a small nod to one of the gunmen behind him. The first shot rang out. Wood from the porch exploded, splinters flying into the air. Nathaniel pulled Ayanna down behind a water barrel. Left side, she shouted. One of the gunmen circled past the fence. Ayanna rolled, aimed through the narrow gap between 2 planks, and fired. The shot cracked sharply. The man fell from his saddle. Nathaniel returned fire toward the front, dropping another man who had been reloading. Gun smoke mixed with the swirling dust. Colton drew his revolver and leapt down from his horse, charging straight toward the porch as if determined to finish this himself. He kicked the cabin door open. Nathaniel met him inside. The 2 men grappled in the tight space. A gun clattered across the floor. Colton swung a punch. Nathaniel staggered, blood forming at the corner of his mouth. Who do you think you are? Colton roared. Some ragged farmer? Nathaniel did not answer. He drove the butt of the rifle hard against Colton's temple. Colton crashed onto the wooden floor, stunned. Ayanna stepped inside, a coil of rope in her hand. Without saying a word, she knelt and pulled Colton's arms behind his back. She tied them tight like the rope that had once cut into her wrists beneath that tree branch. Colton struggled, but it was useless. Nathaniel pushed himself upright, breathing heavily. Outside, the 2 remaining gunmen had already fled when they saw the fight turn against them. Ayanna looked down at Colton lying at her feet. This time, she said quietly, I am the one standing. She dragged him out onto the porch and secured him to a support post. She did not hang him from a tree. She did not take revenge. She kept him alive to face the law, and for the first time since the day she had been left hanging beneath that branch, Ayanna was no longer the one bound. She was the one holding the rope. The sun was high when another set of hoofbeats echoed across the land. Not hired gunmen. Sheriff Matthew Hayes. He dismounted slowly, his eyes settling on his son tied tightly to the porch post outside Nathaniel's cabin. Colton gave a crooked smile, blood still clinging to the corner of his mouth. Pa, he said, as if this were nothing more than a small misunderstanding. They attacked me. Sheriff Hayes did not answer right away. He looked at the 2 bodies lying beyond the fence. He studied the bullet holes in the cabin wall. He noticed the rope biting into his son's wrists. Then he looked at Ayanna. Do you have an explanation? He asked. Ayanna stepped forward, her back straight. Your son tried to force me to sign away my inheritance, she said clearly. When I refused, he hanged me from a tree branch and left me there to die. Sheriff Hayes tightened his jaw. Do you have proof? Ayanna pulled the small leather pouch from inside her jacket. The original deed unfolded beneath the sunlight. Its edges burned, but its seal untouched. This land belongs to my family, she said. He wanted the silver mine. Nathaniel stood beside her, saying little. Sheriff Hayes took the document and read it carefully. He knew the seal was real. He knew the signature was valid. Colton let out a scoffing laugh. Pa, you are going to believe an Indian over your own blood? The words landed heavily. Sheriff Hayes looked at his son. Then he looked at Ayanna, the woman standing on her own land without taking a single step back. I do not believe in skin color, he said slowly. I believe in documents and guns. He pulled the handcuff key from his belt. Colton stiffened. Pa, you cannot. I am the law here, Sheriff Hayes said, and the law does not belong to my family. He removed the rope from the post, but replaced it with iron cuffs. The sharp click of metal locking into place cut through the air. Colton struggled. You will regret this. Sheriff Hayes did not look back. The two gunmen who had fled were declared wanted that same day. Colton was taken back to town under charges of armed assault, conspiracy to coerce inheritance, and murder. When the dust from the departing horses finally settled, the yard in front of the cabin grew quiet again. Ayanna stood still for a long moment. He chose the law, she said softly. Nathaniel looked toward the distant town. Not every father can, he replied. The wind moved gently across the grasslands. For the first time since the day she had been left hanging beneath that tree branch, Ayanna was not just surviving. She was recognized by the law as the rightful landowner, and justice, though delayed, had not turned its back. That afternoon, the sky began to change. Dark clouds rolled down from the mountains into the valley, carrying the scent of rain on dry earth. Ayanna stood in the middle of her land, the deed tucked safely inside her jacket, looking toward the hillside where the silver mine lay quiet beneath the red soil. No one was there to force her to sign. No rope hung from a tree branch. Only land waiting to be cared for. The first drop of rain struck the dust, then the second. Before long, the rain poured down, heavy and decisive, like a cleansing. The dried blood on the porch thinned and vanished. Dust clinging to the fence washed away in dark brown streams. Nathaniel stepped out onto the porch and did not seek shelter. He let the rain soak through his shirt, as if allowing the past to be carried away with it. Ayanna lifted her face to the sky. She had once believed the land brought nothing but pain, betrayal, the fire that took her parents. But now the rain fell over that same land, not like a curse, but like a promise. Nathaniel moved closer. You still want to keep the silver mine? He asked. Ayanna nodded. Not to become rich, so no one can ever say it is not mine again. He gave a faint smile. I will help you dig. She turned to look at him. Her eyes no longer carried the guarded suspicion from that first day in the cabin. No trace of fear when he stood near her wounds. Only trust, built through action. You do not owe me anything, she said. I know, Nathaniel replied. I am staying because I want to. The words were quiet, but they held warmth against the cool rain. They sat down together on the porch steps, shoulders touching, watching the field change color beneath the falling water. New grass would grow again. The fence would stand stronger. The silver mine would be worked legally, and the place where a woman had once hung helpless beneath the blazing sun was now nothing more than a rain-soaked tree trunk. The desert was still harsh, but within it, a woman had kept her land, and a man had found his reason to live again. Not because of the past, but because of the future standing beside him beneath the first rain of the season. Many years later, when the silver mine beneath the hillside had been carefully worked and the ranch had stood firm through many more seasons of drought, people no longer spoke of Ayanna as the girl who had once been hanged from a tree branch. They spoke of her as the woman who kept her land with both courage and the deed in her hand. As for Nathaniel, he never became a hero in saloon stories. He was simply a man who did not turn his back when he saw something wrong. And in the West, that alone was rare enough to be remembered. When we are young, we often believe strength lies in drawing a gun faster than someone else. But after living more than half a lifetime, we begin to understand that real strength lies in standing on the right side, even when that side brings no benefit to you. Ayanna proved that land is not just property. It is memory. It is the labor of parents. It is something that must be protected with truth. Nathaniel proved that a man is not measured by how many guns hang from his belt, but by how he treats the vulnerable. In a place where the law can be bent by power, justice can still be kept straight if someone is willing to stand up and say, enough. And beneath the first rain of that season, it was not only blood and dust that were washed away. Both of them were given another chance, not to forget the past, but to live more honorably toward the future. The story you have just heard contains fictional elements, recreated with the support of artificial intelligence. I invite you to listen with your own reflection and judgment. These fictional details are not meant to rewrite history, but to evoke the spirit of the Old West, a place where people lived under harsh conditions, made difficult choices, and accepted the cost of those choices. Through this story, I simply hope to share a few lasting lessons about compassion, love, and courage, values that remain meaningful no matter how much time has passed. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. I hope you remain safe and at peace, no matter what tomorrow brings. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with the number 2, and subscribe to the channel if you would like to hear more stories from the American West.